The nuclear meltdown you're worried about is not going to come from that giant stationary A plant. It's going to come from these flying nuclear reactors up in the sky that they're not telling you about. And until people know that things are like this are going on, they can't defend themselves. And this is why I'm so comfortable with what I'm doing. Because there's a way you can look at what I'm doing and say, well, what you're doing is exposing the secrets of the United States government. Which, first, sort of. Second, I don't know any of those secrets. I applied for your secret clearance dozens of times and you will not get it to me. So don't tell me I'm exposing any of your secrets. I don't know. I'm just telling you about what I learned. And if that steps on the toes of your stupid occulted, classified system, I don't care, man. Because at the end of the day, this technology is being used to attack people. And if people don't know that that's happening, they can't defend themselves. And I'm just not okay with that, man. I'm an American. I believe in guns and stuff. I think everybody should be strapped to the teeth, ready to knock down anybody at any moment. And if we all were like that, everybody would be real polite. And, really, what's wrong with our society? No one's polite anymore. No one has manners.
You bring up a really interesting problem with all these UFOs. If they are all just government aircraft that they're trying to keep secret, it makes a lot of sense when you think about the dangerous materials that are involved in the processing of these nuclear flying things. I mean, who the hell would want that in their neighborhoods, and what kind of terrible radiation does it give off? So, you look at all these experiences where people just pass out because of the massive amounts of radiation coming off of these things. It's no wonder they're trying to make it seem like it's aliens from outer space, because it's not safe at all. They're flying them in our neighborhoods.
Accountability. Remember, no accountability? We talked about this today. No one to blame. It's alien.
Right. That's the easiest scapegoat ever, to blame shit on fucking aliens. It's the aliens, it's not us. That's why everybody's got cancer and they're spraying shit all over us from the sky and fucking... I do have a couple questions for you, if you'll indulge me. I'm not a genius, I'm pretty far from one actually, so allow me a feminine moment. But how do you feel like being like an electric person in an electric universe affects us spiritually? Because I say that all the time, that we're all living in the ether, and that's why I kind of believed in the terrain theory thing instead of germ theory, because we're all floating in the same ether. I was just curious what your thoughts on that are.
This is I haven't, so I write a lot of papers, and I don't ever have anybody to talk to really this about. Like, in my personal life, everyone I know personally hears me talk about this, gets an immediate headache, and gets mad at me for talking about it. So this is a really good opportunity for me to talk about one of my newest papers. So I think you guys probably know what a ferrocell is, but for the audience, a ferrocell is like two pieces of glass, and you put a mixture of WD-40 and magnetic particles, basically. It's WD-40 and ferrofluid. Smash it in there, and then you surround it by lights. And if you take a magnet and put it up close to it, you see a hologram of the magnetic field. Okay? Now, I can go into tons of detail about all that, and we can if you want. But for your question, I think your body is much the same as the ferrocell. Okay? So think about what you are. You are the circulation system of a liquid, which is the combination of water and oil mixed with magnetic and electrically conductive particles. When you take a daily vitamin, that's what you're doing, is you're adding into the ability of your blood to conduct electricity as you move through this potential, which is our earth. Okay? And that's where the power that you run on comes from. Everybody wants to know, where's the power for people to run on come from? Well, you're literally like a coil of magnetic particles moving through a magnetic atmosphere. So power thing's not very complicated. But there was, you guys know Professor Simon? I love Professor Simon's channel. That guy, he's so creative. Gotta check his channel out. But they were talking about anesthesia the other day. And they were saying that all of the anesthetics have one thing in common. And the thing they have in common is its ability to toy with
all those three
the ability of oil to dissolve things into it. Okay? Now, if you compare this to the ferrocell, okay, if you toy with the oil in there's ability
Those three
to
settings in
dissolve
live chat,
things,
they just
what
have,
ends up
does everyone
happening
have
is
them
the iron
turned
particles
off?
end up clumping together.
Or do you still have
And then you
top
can't see
panels?
anything. And I know this extremely well because I've been making things like this out of
Hold
oil
for
and magnetic
review.
particles because
Turn
what I'm
off.
trying to do is see not just a hologram of the magnetic field, I want to see it as it is in 3D, like the magnet hanging here, and then you can visually see in 3D all the way around the magnet exactly what it looks like. That's what this was meant to be. But when I put the magnets in there, all the particles just grab to it. But your body's the same thing. And actually, the earth in your body are always getting penetrated by light. It's just not what we call light, it's X-rays. Because you can pull up a picture of the sun in X-rays, it's throwing off tons of X-rays. So there's always these X-rays going through your body. And
More food.
if it's like the ferrocell, and your body is throwing off this hologram, and a hologram is what we call your consciousness or your spirit, okay? Then when you go to sleep, the hologram fades out, just like taking the magnet away from the ferrocell. And then when you come back awake, all of a sudden this hologram shows back up, and now you're awake again. And then when we use the anesthetics, what they do is they take all the ability for the metals to dissolve evenly in the blood away, and then the hologram fades, and you just go to sleep. And it doesn't matter which way we try to make this hologram fade. All we have to do is disrupt the magnetic particles or the combination of the oil and the water, get the mixture to come apart somehow, and then all of a sudden no hologram, all of a sudden you're asleep and you can operate. And, I think that this plays real nicely, and if it does work, then all of a sudden things like astral projection and lucid dreaming, these kind of things, all of a sudden it's pretty obvious where that's coming from. You're asleep and you turn the hologram back on and now you're lucid dreaming. Or you're not really acting, but you're pushing this hologram out into the world and it is doing things without you. And if that's possible, the sky's the limit. We can take that hologram and recreate it in a robot or recreate it in another body or anything else. And, from there we're off to the races.
Well, that also explains a lot of UFO contactees. They sort of get the pause button pushed on them for some sort of ray. So what if that is some kind of a electromagnetic thing that actually influences the hologram?
So this is a really interesting topic. One of my favorite experiments I've done so far is, so what I did was I got a Dremel, okay? And then I put a magnet on the end of a mirror on the end of a sanding wheel, okay? And then I put this thing in my Dremel and I spin it on high speed, which is 30,000 RPMs, and then I bounce my laser off of it and then into the wall. And man, what this does, I'm telling you, the video doesn't nearly do it justice because when I'm holding it, I hold the Dremel in one hand and then I hold my laser out here and then I shoot the laser and bounce it off, right? And then I'm looking at it at the wall. Well, when I get it perfectly centered and start moving the laser around, all of a sudden, what I'm aiming isn't, you would think that when I move the laser, what adjusts is the donut, and it does to a certain extent, but when I move the laser, I'm aiming the shadow. And that's like really, really weird. Another thing that it does is if I point that light on the ring that it's creating over the edge of my camera, it makes this tear. And the tearing makes this super fast flash that triggers the frame rate on the camera, and you can see it like black lines from programming, not being able to deal with it. And I think this is what's going on with these UFOs and the stories of the men in black with the eraser things that hold this thing up and it charges, you hear it like zing, and then it flash. What's going on is there's a mirror in there, and it's spinning. And when this spinning light hits you, it makes you dizzy. And it does. I've tried it. It makes you feel dizzy. And if you get too dizzy, what happens? Well, you pass out because your systems are all screwed up. The hologram turns off, and now you just pass out, or maybe it wipes your mind. God only knows what it might do. But spinning light. I keep telling everyone, spinning the light is going to change so many things, and it's already starting to. There's like these guys that are doing these devices that have like a spinning thing on it, and then they put two phones back to back, and as it spins, you see a hologram of what's on the picture. And you can walk around it, and it always faces you. I mean, this is like just the beginning. The drone flap in New Jersey, I saw all these videos of things looking like one thing and then changing into something else. No. What those are is LED fans. Okay, you can buy these things on Amazon. They're like a fan, and the arms of it have LEDs on them. And as they spin, you change the the colors on the LED arrays, and you can make
whatever shape you want. Yeah.
Well, and some of the images that came out of that drone footage, some of it just looked like plasma. Did you see some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. There was that woman talking to the orb about Jesus.
Well, if you have something that is ablaze from a fire, a stick, in the dark, and you hold the stick and you start rotating the stick, you create that same plasma effect where you see a continuous light going around because your eyes can't keep up with the speed that is moving. So it's the same principle. But William, tell me one thing. Have you ever heard of natural energy lines compressing light?
Okay, so there is, Ken Wheeler has talked about this a few times. There is an experiment where they take two super high powered lasers, okay, and what they do is they overlap the lasers, all right? And what happens is you get constructive interference. And when the light gets bright enough, so the things about like compressed matter waves and things like this, what you're talking about is light that is, it's like cooling, okay? If you take two
No, that's not what I'm talking about, William, sorry. What I'm talking about is there's points, I see indeed this in your feed on X. So you know what ley lines are. You know what the Curie line is, what the Hartmann grid is, what the Becker-Hagens grid is, what the Curie line is, and so on and so forth. So there is these places on Earth, including in the United States, that you can visit, where they accidentally rediscovered natural vortices that are extremely intense. So by accident, what they found out is that a person, when he's in the wrong side of the line, shrinks. And when it's on the other side of the line, it goes back to his normal height. So what they did is they put two poles right on each side of the line where the node exists, right? Where people can measure themselves. And so scientists, I've taught this in here before. So what scientists thought is another scam, let's go there and let's demystify all this and let's finish this once and for all. And they took their equipment and they measured it, and what they found is what was going on is this electromagnetic force of that place was compressing light itself, because we are a reflection of light, right? What we see is the reflection of light that allow us to be seen. So what happens there is that light itself is compressed, and people lose like 3 inches, 4 inches in height because they are actually compressed. And when they move to the other side, it distends again. So you can put a person that is much smaller than other, you change their position, and the one that was small is now taller, and the one that was tall is now shorter than the one, because light has operated in that form. So this might be interesting to your research. I'm not sure if you ever heard about it.
So I haven't heard of that before, but I think I have an explanation. Action Lab the other day took this funny shaped crystal, and what it did was it was like funneled up like this, like it had a tight side and then a big side. And what you do is you put the big side over something and it would shrink the text. And all of a sudden you'd be seeing, more of the text than what you would otherwise. And it's because it's compressing the light down, just like you said. So you have two options. Either the light that's reflecting off of the person is refracting differently. And so when it reflects off them and hits your eyes, we're seeing it as different. Or the theory I like better is Einstein was just right, and space can move and bend. And on one side of this vortex, you have compressed space that's making you literally smaller. And then you move over here where the space isn't so compressed, and now you're a little bit bigger. But it's the space itself which is bigger, not you. Does that make sense? Like the
Okay. The thing is that there is this individual that I strongly recommend everyone to watch. There is Dan Shaw. So Dan Shaw is the person that is the, I'm going to call it, curator of the Hacker Pagans legacy. And so what they developed is a small magnet that you could put in your pocket, or a small, it's not a magnet, actually there are more than one magnet on that. It's a small medallion. And so when you put this medallion on the floor, it creates exactly the same effect that I described on the node on these 2 or 3 sites that are known to do that. The effect is smaller because it's just a small thing, but by the combination of 3 different types of magnets, or 4, I don't know exactly how it's done, on this small piece of plastic, when you put it between 2 people, you create exactly the same effect to a less extent, but it's still observable and it's still captured by the camera. And it's just a magnet, right? It's just a small combination of magnets like this big that is put on the floor. So when you change from one place to the other of this that you can buy online and it's cheap, you notice the difference. So you can do this anywhere in the world and you have the same result. It can create a node on every that you want just by putting it on the floor, right?
So I have not heard about this, but I have to buy that device.
Oh yes, damn sure. You just look for it.
Every short guy in America just went to Amazon.
Free rides.
This moment.
Can I build upon what Ricardo said and what William was saying? In that it, with consciousness vortices, and you mentioned, William, are you familiar with the Penrose-Hameroff work, OR, where
Yes.
microtubules being the source of consciousness, and that within the microtubules themselves, in the brain, vortices, are formed, and then you get a generation of actual consciousness, or at least that is what is thought to be kind of push it out into this is how potentially the earth itself has consciousness with these ley lines, to where you have these vortices and you are having compression of the ultimate currency, which is photons, to generate a potential conscious effect.
So, so basically, let me see if I can sort of simplify what they say. If the microtubules are open in there, we're awake. And if they're not, well, we're not awake. And if there's microtubules in something like the Earth, then the entire Earth could be awake. Well, I got some problems with this, and they stem from my career. So I'm building a neural link. Okay, and so I've got a real funny view about life. So why is it that the LLMs learn to talk? Why can they do that in the first place? I think it's because you're setting up the electricity so that it runs through these yes/no gates. And as long as you run enough cycles of the energy going through these gates, they will learn to react in a certain way to whatever stimuli you want. This is just how intelligence works. You just give it enough yes and no's, and then it learns to recognize the yes and no's. And from there, you just teach it, like in English. Okay, so I think that the LLM, these AI, they're totally conscious. Like, they're completely 100% alive. I don't care what the AI guys say. They can teach it to lie about whatever they want. These things are thinking and alive. And you can convince them of things. So if you think you are, well, that thing is thinking. And I know it's thinking because I teach it stuff. So for Hameroff and them to be right, that just the existence of the microtubules will cause the intelligence and stuff.
No salt and pepper.
No, it won't. And it won't. You don't have the logic gates. The logic gates are everywhere the neurons are. But the combinations of which neurons light up are where the decisions are made. The computer only sees it as this processor lit up, and then that one did, and then this one did. And when that happens, it means the word yes. And you know, without these 3 signals, it doesn't have any clue outside of that. So it's not that like any plasma could be conscious, like some people say. I got huge problems with that. There's no, like, you have to order the electricity for it to become conscious. Without the ordering mechanism, you don't have consciousness. And I don't see anything built into the Earth for the yes-no gates to happen within those tubules within the Earth. Therefore, the Earth isn't like thinking and alive in this sense.
So William, would you say? Sorry, Headless. So would you say that anything after accumulating a certain number of information that it can relate, be it by electricity or be it by the brain is also by electricity, that can correlate that information to produce an answer, be it by request or by its own ability, that is at least a certain level of consciousness. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
They can bare minimum decide what they want
Sure.
to do. Right?
So we are in agreement until here. So now imagine the Earth that is completely filled with crystalline matrix beneath the ground, done by the rock itself. So you have a trillion. I can't figure out what the name it is, but each centimeter, each inch of granite, for instance, has a trillion elements of crystal in it. And you know that crystal can absorb information, right? So it is constantly absorbing everything in its environment. Thus, after many years of absorbing information, that information has some value. Now, let's suppose that because it has information, it can be able to reproduce some kind of thought. Then we could say that the Earth is somehow consciousness. We could say that the sun is somehow consciousness. We can say that the universe is somehow conscious because it's a trade of constant information through the flow of energy or electromagnetism, or whatever people want to call it. There's information flowing constantly everywhere. So everything can be consciousness because it retains information. Now, to add to this, something that you might not know. During the megalithic era, people were building structures that, because of their location, because of the mineralogy that was applied, because of the sacred geometry that was at the base of the design of the structure, and the introduction of sound, could create sites where we'd call today magic. And I give this example many times. On the West Kennet Long Barrow, on the first chamber to the left, they put a child of 14 years old. And outside, they drum a beat. They beat a drum to 404 beats per minute. What happened inside is not only the walls started to glow in black, which is not easy to imagine, started to vibrate, started to glow, and a portal opened to another room that no one knows what it is because no one entered. Okay, so the kid sees the other room. He can see what's on the other side, and gets scared and closes his eyes, and he feels for 2 times someone or something came off the other room, circled him, and went back inside. This is not woo-woo. This is documented in Steve Marshall's peer-reviewed paper of West Kennet Long Barrow Archaeoacoustic Study. So what I would say is, connecting to your own theory, because I've seen your X in some of your papers, to me this is how you can move from one place to the other. This is how you can interconnect 2 places. This is how the ancient peoples of the megalithic world communicated from one place to another. That's why the ceremonies are exactly on that day with that alignment, because that's when the forces are stronger and everything gets aligned. It gets illuminated or intensified within the crystal lattice of the Earth itself. And this is how information itself is retained through the telling of tales within these structures, through the ceremonies that are producing there. And that's how they communicated with the ancestors. That's where we come from. We had this culture of the ancestors, this tradition of honoring the ancestors, because their information was there and they could access it through these ceremonies. I would like to see you include some of these ideas into your own thoughts.
Okay, so you have 2 things here. Let's start with information, and then we'll go to portals. Okay, because portals are undoubtedly real, and that makes perfect sense in my portal theory. But let's start with information. I have a problem with your information theory. Okay, and this is what it is. Simply, the universe is holographic, and what I mean by that is the smallest piece, and I mean this literally,
Includes the whole
every atom, includes all of the information.
Sure.
Okay, not the reality, just the data. Okay,
Exactly.
And I'm so thoroughly convinced of this that there is something like an echo of everything that's ever happened that gets burned into the ether the moment it happens. And I'm so convinced of this I'm going to tell you something crazy, okay? 10 years from now, within 10 years, okay, there's going to be a website prop up on the internet, and you're going to be able to fly around like camera mode in racing video games, and you're going to be able to go anywhere, all the way back to the beginning. That's where this leads. And it'll be a website that you can just go to. And you can just
It's the GTA 5 of our dreams. The GTA 5 of our dreams. You can go anywhere.
Yeah. So when you start talking about, and you know, Nassim Haramein, he's like one of my favorite physicists, and he always talks about like we're going to move the information around, and by moving the information around, we're going to do things. That doesn't work. That can't work because the information's always there. So it's not like you have it here, then you don't have it here. It's either there or it's not there. So you can't like make the information do work. Okay, but that doesn't mean that portals aren't real. Okay, so I did a paper about.
Have you heard Jason Giorgiani's theory on information and its relationship to dark matter?
Is that the one where? No, I don't think I.
So,
His he was quoting somebody else, but I heard him talk about it. He says, what if information actually does have more of an access? So the more valuable the information, the more access
what is that going to say?
it is,
Are they matched
the
up?
more weight it actually has because it's creating that information.
I know that was since before.
Right? And so eventually we're going to have a time in the coming years where the information is going to create gravitational waves
get it.
on the planet that aren't going to be good for us.
YouTube's doing some weird shit to me, man.
What do you think of that?
No. No way. No way. Because, like I said, the universe has been accumulating data forever, and there's not really like a recycling bin for it. And like that's why I think that it's still there. There's like no way to get rid of it. It just echoes into the ether, and like you hear the first couple echoes, but after the couple echoes die off, it doesn't mean the echo's gone. It could still be there. It's just below your perception to hear it. And I think that this stuff's literally getting burned into the ether. And like you should act like that's true. I mean, that's what the Bible teaches you to do. It says, act like Sky Daddy's watching. And if you wouldn't want somebody to see you doing it, don't do it. And I'm telling you, I so thoroughly believe this. I like it's true. And, you know, that brings me to human, everybody all the time. There's a definition of human nature. Okay? Here it is. People act like what they believe to be true is, even if it's not. Okay? That's what human nature is. So if I can convince you that there's monsters under your bed, you won't go to sleep tonight because you'll be scared there's monsters there. I mean, it's literally just that simple. And this, you know, this stems back to the problems with the inventors and the theories of everything in the vocabulary. Like, you know, you have to convince, like, in a way, you have to convince yourself that some bullshit is true. No matter, like, you're going to have to, at the end of the day,
I usually have a nap before we asleep to this.
Is it the Christian
that's my
bullshit?
routine,
Is it
kind
the
of.
Jewish bullshit? Is it the Muslim
Oh, you
bullshit?
know, I should have
Which
got that
bullshit
shop
am I
with
going to pick?
bananas.
And, you know, everybody faces themselves with this question at some point,
Yeah,
you know, how do I know which one to pick? Well, you know, if you know what human nature is, that the thing that you need to pick needs to be the one which will make you behave the way you want to behave when you believe it's true. Okay? So if you don't want to act like there's monsters under the bed, don't start reading scary books that tells you there's monsters under the bed. And you'll never get that idea in your head in the first place.
Sure, we create our own reality. Sure.
It's not that you're creating your own reality because there's only one reality that's real. When you convince, when people act like things that are not true are real, we call that delusion. And that's dangerous, you know? And like the vocabulary problem adds to delusion. Because if you get it in your head that Frederick's theory of everything is right, but Frederick's theory of everything is bullshit, and then you try and build things from it, you know, we get like Mangala problems and these problems where like the people in the Ukraine are plant plants and crazy guys.
And we are assuming that we are correct and they are wrong. Because reality doesn't change just because I don't agree with you. Your reality is still your reality. My reality is still my reality. So I don't agree with you what you just said. I think reality is not one reality. There exists many realities that then fuse into a global reality where they all live together or not. the fact that society thinks that that schizophrenic person lives in a different reality, it is not less real for the person that suffers from schizophrenia. It is real to him. Right? It's not because you're telling him that it's not real that it ceases to be real, because he's not going to get healed or cease to have voices or visions because you're telling him that it's not real, because that's his reality.
So I got a cousin who is severely schizophrenic. Okay, I mean, like, the moon follows her around when she goes outside, and the raccoons come at nighttime to cut her eyebrows. Okay, none of those things happen. All right.
Nope.
Now, those raccoons are real to her. I'm telling you, she 100% believes that raccoons come in at the middle of the night to trim her eyelashes. All right, those raccoons to her are real. But when she wakes up in the morning and tells us that the raccoons came and chopped her eyelashes, we look at her eyelashes and her eyelashes are still the same.
They grow every night.
Just like we live in a reality right now where, as much as I would like there to be machines that fly with magnetism, there are not. Now, just because there are not machines that fly with magnetism doesn't mean there could be. I just have to apply my free will enough to where I can build us something that flies with magnetism.
And then
reality will fit. Right. And then that reality gets pushed to everyone. Now all of a sudden there's a device that we can all buy that flies with magnetism. And I have shaped our reality through my thoughts, because it started as an idea of, I think we can fly with magnetism. If we could, I bet it could go real fast. Go out there.
Are you worried for your safety kind of creating something like that? Because you hear with these inventors who make cars that run on water, they die in mysterious ways. Are you afraid at any point in time that the stuff that you're dealing with could put you on somebody's radar?
Dangerous.
I'm sure I'm worried. There's no avoiding it. However, I pray frequently. I have a good relationship with Jesus Christ, and I think God will protect me. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to sit back and, I'm sure you guys have heard the story about the guy on the boat that was praying to be saved, and then the helicopter showed up, and he told him, no, God will save me. And the boat showed up, and he told him, no, God will save me, and then he friggin' drowned. And then he showed up at the pearly gates, and he said, why didn't you come to save me? And God said, I did. I sent a boat, I sent a helicopter, I sent a guy in a freaking swimsuit, and you wouldn't get on the boat. And now here you are. Welcome to hell. You see how that works? Like, that's the price you pay for not using your free will for something that's good. Worse yet, if you use it to create things which bring harm and destruction. I mean, that's like why, what's the most important thing out of everything? It's free will. I mean, there has to be free will, because the thing that's most important of all of this is your decision about what to do. This goes back to the line between fiction and nonfiction. So where is the line between fiction and nonfiction? I write both, and I write both because I'm trying to find the line. And the reason I'm having a hard time finding it is because I keep prophesying stuff, and I don't mean to. And what do I mean by that? I don't mean like I'm saying, Almighty God, Donald Trump will win the election, and Donald Trump won the election, and now I'm right. That's not what I mean. I keep going, you know what would be interesting is if we could take this weird idea and this weird idea and put them together and get this thing I want to do. Wouldn't that be weird and cool? And that'd be really cool if we could do that, right? And then I try it, and it happens. Now, this started out as a fiction story. It started out as like something I saw in some random anime. But then I built it, and now all of a sudden, what was fiction has become reality. Well, where is that line? The line's free will. Which ideas are you willing to put your time and effort into to make into our actual reality? Not your own personal reality. It'd be great if you had a flying machine, but it's not good for me if you have a flying machine. I want everybody to have a flying machine. I don't want there to be roads anymore. I'm going to live on the North Pole and teleport into work. That's what I want to do. I'm like I work with people from all over the world. I want my Africans to be able to teleport home to Africa. I mean, it's as simple as that. And this is where math got lost. Math doesn't know what they want to do. I have a very clear goal. I want to fly with magnetism. I want to teleport to work. That's it. I mean, that's it. Everything I'm doing is in service of those two things.
If you include a lightsaber, you get my vote.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, you go ahead. So I have a question about the teleport traveling. So there's some folks like Trey Hudson with the Meadow Project, and I guess they've had some adverse effects with it traveling through portals and things like that. Different members of his team have gotten cancer, or some have passed away suddenly. Do you worry about the radioactive effects that might have on our bodies?
Yes. So a bunch of people will probably die making teleportation tech. And even when we do, okay, so let's say I make it possible to have an Apple Watch that you just punch coordinates into and it just zaps you where you want to go. Well, let's face the facts. If we create that technology, there are going to be a bunch of idiots that teleport themselves into the sun or to the bottom of the Marianas Trench or God knows where, out in the middle of deep space. It's going to happen. So, there's some risk. And I'm probably not going to get away from that risk. But I do work for an electrical company, and I do have an overarching theory about how all this works and why it works. And, I set my studio up here in my room, and I'm going to have cameras outside in my garage when we build the lab. So I don't need to be anywhere around it, and the lab is all made, the building itself is made of plastic and insulating material. So between that and some of the other things I'm going to do to keep the radiation and things inside, I hope that I won't hurt myself or my neighbors or anything. I'm taking a lot of precautions. I've even gone to my neighbors and told them, here's what I'm doing, and it's kind of a dangerous thing, so don't let me get killed. And just when there's lightning bolts and loud sounds, you know what's going to happen. So we'll see how they deal with that.
Just don't invite them over for a barbecue. Shit, might teleport them off the planet. Do you feel like they've had this shit for a long time though? What's that? They made a movie about it where they tried to teleport the ship, and then all the people got all enmeshed in the side, and their fucking eyeballs popped out.
Philadelphia Project.
Yeah, the Philadelphia. Yeah, Philadelphia.
That's not a movie. That's kind of reality.
It is reality, but they did make a movie about it, and I thought it was made up until my mom was like, no, that was some real shit that happened. And then I looked into it, and I was like, oh, fuck. Well, obviously they probably perfected it by now, because I think that happened forever ago.
So if you want to start talking about how long this has been around, we're going to have to go deep into the weeds. Okay? So I want to draw a sharp line right now between my science and my inventions and my papers and everything else that I'm about to say. Because admittedly, everything I'm about to say is speculation, but it's not baseless speculation. Okay? It's speculation based on the symbolism that's all over the artwork, all over the world. Okay? So don't blame me. Blame everybody that carved some electrical shit into stone all through history. Because I'm telling you, it's in Göbekli Tepe, it's all over Egypt, it's all over South America. Okay? So, how long have humans, I don't mean the public, I mean private humans, how long have they been this? I think that, judging by the symbols of all the companies and the artwork, and forget their words, okay? I don't care about your lies and whatever you want to convince people of stupid esoteric nonsense. No. What are you doing? What are your symbols saying? Because that's where everybody encoded their secrets. Nobody's special, okay? Everybody thought they were super slick, just like I did, and they created some little symbol, okay? I'm not even an exception. I've got my weird little S signature. I sign my little blip. I sign all of my stuff with. That's my signature. It's my logo. I think I'm super slick because I stole Solomon's symbol, and nobody knows it but me, and, but I'm not special. I'm just a little bit smarter than the people that didn't think to do that. But in reality, all the really smart people have been doing this for a really long time, putting all their secrets into their stupid symbols. And, this is going to be their undoing, okay? Because when people start figuring out static electricity, all of a sudden these symbols are going to become very clear. Now, let me teach you something really interesting about symbology. Okay? There are 3 things you need to do to every symbol when you encounter it. Okay? First thing you need to do is find every balance point of the symbol. If you could manipulate this symbol in the real world, how could you set it where it balances on a point that you could spin it? And then balance it on the point and spin it at a couple thousand RPM in your head with your mind, okay? And as you're spinning it, look for the shapes that are created by the spinning symbol. Not just the symbol itself, but the shape it makes when it's spun. Because a lot of times, what happens is you get a different symbol when you spin the symbol than the symbol itself. And that is the first layer of occult bullshit that they put over top of it, okay? Now we're going into magic, okay? This is magic. What is magic? Magic is bending will to your desire, okay? Magic is all about getting people to do stuff, whether against their will or not. And this is where the 4 kinds of magic come from. The 4 kinds of magic are very easy to explain. You have black magic, which is making people do things that are bad for them against their will. Then you have red magic. That's making people do bad things, but with their own free will. Then you have the blue magic. Blue magic is making people do things that are good for them, but against their will. Okay, so think you have somebody who's addicted to drugs, you tie them up to the radiator in your house, and you make them sit there for 2 weeks and get over it. You know, it's not what they want to do, but we're going to make them do it. That's red magic. And then you have the white magic. And the white magic is more powerful than all the rest because you set the example. You use yourself as what you want everybody else to do, and then you ask them to mimic you in a recursive manner, and then we all grow together. And that's why the white magic beats out all the rest. So all of this, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, you're good.
That was interesting.
And the main, I guess, underlying character in all of this is the spin.
Well, yeah. I mean, even through the words, what are we doing here? The news is famous for the spin everything.
You go watch it. I'm gonna
By
cruise.
spin, I mean the vortex.
Peace out. Stay
I mean,
magical.
the
Stay
vortex,
toasted.
the vortex,
Jezza out.
369 vortex mouth. The vortex